still plan to come in? Kevin didn't leave, did he? Kevin's coming?
Sure, he'll be here. But he didn't say anything.
I don't
We can start it out.
I would like to welcome everyone present today and those watching the broadcast and call the June 18th, 2019 regular meeting to order with all board members present. And with that, let us please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please place your hand over your heart, and let's begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. I would like a motion to adopt today's agenda
So moved.
with Section I, Superintendent's consent agenda, to be considered next. So we have the motion on the floor. Please vote. And that passes 5-0. Let us now please turn our attention to the screens as the Scripps Ranch High School's former ASB President, Jerry Yang, provides important information related to today's meeting. Begin.
Today's meeting of the Board of Education is a business meeting that is conducted in public, and board members will not engage in a dialogue with the members of the audience. The opportunities for members of the public to provide input to the board on agendized items and to provide testimony on non-agenda items is through the submittal of an electronic public testimony request. The time period for speakers on each agendized item are set by the board as described in the board's bylaws and will be announced to the members of the public as each agendized item comes up for discussion. Speakers on agendized items will be called on to speak during the discussion of the item. If you wish to address the board on any of today's agendized items, or on a subject that is not on today's agenda, and your name is not on the speaker list, printed on the blue paper located at both entrances to the auditorium, and you have not already submitted a public testimony request, please complete the electronic form. For your convenience, iPads are available at the reception desk in the lobby and are also on the table at the back of the auditorium. Public testimony requests are automatically time-stamped and must be submitted prior to the beginning of the discussion on an item. If you need assistance completing or submitting the request, please see Board Services staff. You are asked to provide your name or the name you wish to be called by on the public testimony request so that the board action officer can ensure that all speakers on an item have been called. Public testimony on non-agenda matters will be heard at the conclusion of all agendized business. And a Spanish interpreter is available and is seated at the media table if you need any assistance. Thank you for your interest in participating in our board meeting.
And thank you, our star here.
Live and in person.
Yes, in person. Thank you. Does anyone wish to take any item off the consent agenda for Section I? Okay, no one. Okay. In that case, do we have any speakers on these items?
Yes, we have speakers on items I-5 and I-6.
Okay, we'll take those off.
I'll move the superintendent's
Oh,
consent.
and one other thing, just a second. I-2 and I-19 have already been removed. Staff previously removed them. So minus those 4 items, yes?
So I'll move the superintendent's consent agenda with the exception item 5 and 6.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of that motion, please vote appropriately. And that passes 5-0. Thank you. Now, let us move on to student presentations, and I'm delighted that Clay Elementary School, you're here today, Lead in Me program from the Crawford Cluster, and school is out, but they still wanted to come and participate. So, Ms. Monica, why don't you share with us about them?
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Martin, Board President Dr. Whitehurst Payne, and distinguished board members. I am honored to introduce Clay Elementary students, staff, and parents who will highlight their work as a Leader in Me school. They are on track to becoming an official Franklin Covey Lighthouse School, and they're cultivating leadership in every child, teaching children life skills and giving every child a voice in their educational experience. So please welcome Clay Principal Lindsay Micallison and her students.
Thank you. Oh, okay, that's right. Okay, good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for allowing us to present today. We are honored to be here. Thank you to Monica Hazel and to our school board for allowing us to share with you the Leader in Me program. We really have shifted the culture at Clay Elementary School from a completely adult-led school to more student-led. We've empowered our students in their learning and in their lives and in everything that they do. So I'm very, very proud of these students who are coming over their summer vacation to share with you about the 7 habits. With only 10 minutes to present, we thought, oh my goodness, how do we do that? Because we have so much to share. There's so many fabulous things happening at Clay. But we decided today we would begin with teaching you about the 7 habits and how they are having a positive impact on our learning and on our lives. We also have representatives from one of our clubs here today to share about the Clay Cleanup Crew. We have over 15 clubs on our campus, which are completely run by teachers voluntarily, which we're also really proud of, that teachers have been empowered and found their passion. So there's so much to say, but I will pass the mic on to our fabulous Clay leaders.
Hi, I'm Lily. Hi, I'm Eva. We are going to be 5th graders at Clay Elementary. We are here representing the Leader in Me program at Clay Elementary.
We are longtime students at Clay. Our siblings went here. We have both been at this school for over 7 years.
Clay has been an awesome school for all those years.
It is still an awesome school to this day.
The Leader in Me program has made this school better than it already was.
Clay is a very peaceful place.
It is a very caring school.
Now we're going to start the presentations. We are excited to teach you about the Clay Elementary Leader in Me program.
Habit 1 is Hi, my name is Eva. Habit 1 is be proactive. Being proactive means to be in charge of yourself, meaning to be nice in every situation. For example, if I accidentally broke my friend Lily's favorite lightsaber pen, I would feel very guilty and I might just lie and say, oh, when your pencil bag fell, it broke. That's when I wasn't using the 7 habits. When I am, I say, I'm so sorry. I was the one who broke your favorite pen. I'll pay you money to buy a new one. Habit 1 is a very nice and cool habit because it helps us remember to be in charge of ourselves and make good choices.
Hi, my name is Connor. I was in the 5th grade, but now I am heading off to Lewis Middle School. In all my years at Clay, I think that habit 2, begin with the end in mind, helped me the most. Begin with the end in mind means to have a plan before you do something. One time I used habit 2 was in 4th grade during testing. I didn't like writing, and I only liked to read books that I picked out myself, so it was hard to get motivated for testing. But a week before the test, I made a plan to practice for the test and ended up getting a really good score on my test. This is why I like habit 2. I think I'll use habit 2 in middle school because there are so many different classes and teachers. I'll need to be organized and and plan ahead if I want to get good grades. Thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Audrina. I am in 5th grade. The habit that I will be explaining is habit 3, put first things first. Putting first things first means you get the most important things done first, and then you can get the non-important things done. For example, if you really want to play but you have homework, it will be better to do the homework than play. It's better to do the most important things first so you could just let it go and have a good time. Being a leader is fun because you take on the role of being successful in learning.
Hi, my name is Lily. Habit 4 is think win-win. Think win-win means to always try to find the bright side in every situation. Even if you think you lost, you can always make a compromise or let the other person have their way, and you could have your way later. With this habit, you need to synergize and be proactive. You need to synergize because when you compromise to work together, you have to find a solution that would make you both happy. You need to be proactive because no one always gets their way. Sometimes it's fun, but other times it's really upsetting, but you always have to remain calm. As an example, whenever me and my friend Eva do a science project together, there's many things we could do at any time. She might want to do one thing while I might want to do another. So she could do her thing first and I could do my thing second. In conclusion, habit 4 is a very useful habit and it should be used in your everyday life.
Hi, my name is Shani. Next year I'll be in 4th grade. Habit 5 is seek first to understand, then to be understood. Habit 5 means to listen first, then talk. I use habit 5 by listening when my teacher talks, then I answer the question. When we have a sub, I listen to her or him so I will not get a clip down. Hi, I'm Savannah. Habit 6 is synergize. Next year, I will be a 3rd grader at Clay. Synergize means to work together with a couple of friends or a group of people. It also means to be part of a group of people. If you need 5 people in a group, you can ask your friends to help you, and you can all work. And you can work together. And when you work together, you will be able to achieve more than you would all by yourself.
Hi, my name is Brad. I was in 5th grade at Clay. Next year I will be going to middle school at Lewis, and I will be talking about habit 7. Habit 7 is sharpen the saw. What it means to sharpen the saw is that you have to balance your life. You have to work hard but also have fun. An example of me using habit 7 is when at recess I play 4th grade and wall ball, and when I get in the classroom I will work on my assignments.
Tonight we would like to tell you about one of Clay's club called Clay Cleanup Crew. Avery and Jacob and me are all members of this club. I am the manager of the club. Clay Cleanup Crew is about cleaning our school. It helps us be more proactive and it lets me get out in the real world and clean up everywhere.
Hi, my name is Avery. I'm going to 4th grade next year. I am the co-manager of Clay Cleanup Crew. Clay Cleanup Crew helps me clean up the school for fun. At first I thought I wouldn't like doing it, but it actually felt really nice to help the school and the earth. Next year I hope more people join.
Hi, my name is Jacob. Next year I will be a 4th grader. I love Clay Cleanup Crew because I can help the earth and the staff members also. I love to help my school. I hope everyone here will help clean up at your school because it helps our schools and the earth. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Clay Elementary School's Wildcat Leaders. We hope you have learned more about the 7 habits and how they have helped us and how they can also help you.
Thank you to the students and parents and educators from Clay School. School is out, yes, but they came to share.
Superintendent Martin, do we know how many other schools are participating in the Leadership in Me program?
I don't have an exact number off the top of my head, but I can picture a bunch of them. But there's
Just
a lot.
such powerful voices. You can
You're
hear
the numbers guy.
agency.
Remember, you like to
Yeah, I
count.
know.
Yeah,
I'm
how
looking
many
for-
gardens do we have? How many? Yeah.
5.
Thank you. Let us move on now to D1, I believe it is, closed session. Let's see. We have a speaker on that?
Yes, we have one speaker on D1, citizen.
And did you have anything to report?
There's nothing to report.
Okay. This is on D1, the information, no report, it's on that from the staff. Is there a speaker, you said?
Sorry, I have a hearing loss. So I'm going to speak to the reports on closed sessions. It's hard to know what it is because you never know what the reports are ahead of time. However, I do note that there is a failure for this school board to report on settlements of lawsuits. An example of that would have been the $375,000 settlement with an investigator that was fired after he uncovered several instances of sexual abuse of students at Green Elementary. I think that the school board needs to go back to the practice of posting the settlements in whole so people can see them. It's something that is costing a lot of taxpayers money. The lawsuit on the Crawford teacher was the jury awarded the teenager that was sexually abused by a teacher $2 million. The public needs to know that. The public needs to know what you guys are doing with the tax money.
Thank you. Item D2, and that would be you, the superintendent. Superintendent Martin.
Thank you, President Whitehurst-Payne. The management appointments for this evening are Vice Principal at Euclid Elementary School, Olivia Noriega; Vice Principal Marshall Elementary School, Stacy Donahue; Vice Principal Oak Park Elementary School, Antoinette Curtis; Principal Franklin Elementary School, Melissa Roy Wood; Principal Miramar Ranch Elementary School, Carolyn Kalicki; Program Manager K-12 Music, Ann Fennell; and Program Manager Low Incidence, Kristen McKenna.
Thank you. D3, and that is our illustrious Jerry Yang, who is now going to Carnegie Mellon, yes, in the fall. Why don't you update us?
Okay. So this is working. All right, well, this is the last meeting for me, so it's a little bit of a slight update, but also kind of just goodbye remarks. So, I mean, Scripps, we graduated Wednesday at Jenny Craig Pavilion. A bittersweet moment. It's really interesting, you know. I didn't know that that one graduation song was a graduation song until I started graduating. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, so I mean, there's ultimately not too much to report. I mean, we're all done, fortunately, and you know, sooner or later we'll be off. And some people are off, you know, in about a week or two. I have a few friends who are going Naval Academy, so they're going. Like they hardly have a summer. They're just going straight to school. Plenty of discipline. But for kids like me, probably I have until August, fortunately, to kind of enjoy life before we start studying again. And I guess in terms of goodbye remarks, it has really been an honor being able to work with you guys. I'm always in a state of gratitude to sit next to the people who kind of crafted just about my entire 18 years to a degree. I mean, I went to EBS, Ellen Browning, then Marshall Middle, then Scripps Ranch High. I would say at least 30 to 50% of my entire time that I spent at school or engaging in school activities was kind of influenced by you guys. And so slowly working my way up and finally being able to meet the people who are behind you know, all of the Common Core, I mean, putting that in place and seeing the people who put all of these things in front of the students, it really is very eye-opening. Because I don't think a lot of students really understand, you know, the amount of work that goes behind the policies and the changes every single year. I guess in terms of my last little remark is that graduation is great. You know, speaking at this last meeting is great, but ultimately, Alan Watts, a great, I think, British philosopher, said this nicely. It's not necessarily the exact endpoints that matters, it's the intervals that matter a bit more. You can use that for music. In music, you don't necessarily hear the notes, you actually hear the intervals between them. Just like how with this graduation, with this last speech, kind of. I mean, yes, it's symbolic, but ultimately this kind of represents the 12 years that I had in the San Diego Unified School District schools, and I think I'm all the better. I think I've been thoroughly equipped to go off into the world and make the change that needs to be done, and I think I have the solid foundation that Carnegie Mellon will add on to. All right, thank you so much.
I think for me, each year, each person, you get closer and closer. And we've enjoyed working with you. You've taken us all to a higher level. And we're looking forward to hearing about you in the future, greater things. And I don't know if any of the other board members want to say anything to you or not, but I really appreciate all that you've done this year.
Thank you.
And thank
I'd like to congratulate you as well and to acknowledge you for the high bar that you set. It's been a real thrill to have you sit here on the dais with us to bring the student voice with you. You've been an excellent representative of your cohort and of your students, and it's been a thrill to sit with you. I have a question. One of the intervals is making the transition. What is the transition to the new ASB team and the selection of new officers, and who sits on the dais?
All right, well, Scripps Ranch High School, recently they elected in Sophia Ippolito. Hopefully, you guys will be hearing of her more often. So Sophia Ippolito is the new ASB president, and I can probably send you the list of the entire list of the ASB cabinet. But I have encouraged for her to run for the president of the President Council. And hopefully, I'll nag her a little bit more this summer, and hopefully she'll be here. You got it.
And all of the schools, they're eligible to run for that position, right?
Yes.
So we'll encourage all of them to at least try out for it.
He's just trying to lock in Scripps.
I know, he's trying to do it, but we
see
can
what
have
you're
some
doing.
from others. Yes, John.
Yeah, I want to congratulate you too, Jerry, and I was just realizing how time flies when we're going to graduations. When Richard and I got on the board, you were in 2nd grade. So
wow.
That's quite an interval.
Yes.
Thank you again.
I want to thank you for your service. You'd mentioned that a lot of the folks up here on the board and the superintendent and the teachers, they all have had an impact on your education. And that's absolutely correct. It's been a very challenging 8, 9, 10 years for some of us up here, fighting every year to try to figure out how do we keep your class sizes small. How do we keep your school staffed? And while that seems so removed, we know, and we've known over the years, that whether or not we can retain quality educators and teachers has a direct impact on you, and making sure that we're supporting the teachers that are taking care of you. But one of the things I do want to say is, I've been on the board for a long time, and we've had different presidents come through. You implemented some very profound structural changes into your board council and making some recommendations to the school district to change the way that we allow students 16 and over to be involved in our school district, and I want to thank you for those efforts.
We're all the more grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, Jerry, thank you so much. I agree with Trustee Beiser. I think you have left lasting impact in your role this year, and not only as the ASB representative on the board, but in your work with the student equity ambassadors. I think the presentation, the workshop that we had on grading with the amount of voice that we had from you and the other students was really one of the best experiences that I've had on the board. You're an incredibly thoughtful person. You're going to do amazing things, and we hope that as part of your ongoing legacy to the San Diego Unified District, you can continue to mentor students either as they're going through the school system or as they graduate and move on. So thank you for your leadership, Jerry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One of the legacies, or I should say the seed that you left behind, is the opportunity for students to have an actual vote on the board. And we look forward to considering that in the future.
Yes, thank you. Let us move now to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Whitehurst-Payne. I'll continue with the graduation season. We just celebrated the successes of the graduating class of 2019 with a whirlwind of ceremonies this past week that many of us were a part of. I want to say that I am extremely proud of the class of 2019 because they set so many new academic records. Let me just give a couple of those. Class of 2019 had I know Mike's getting ready to write. He loves the records. Had the highest number of graduating seniors who participated in our dual enrollment program, which allows high school students to take college-level classes on their campus. A record 2,618 students, more than 40% of our graduates, took at least one college-level course before graduating from high school. Nearly 68% of the total graduating seniors also took an AP course this year, and 331 students earned the California Seal of Biliteracy, which is something new for our district. Many more students earned the San Diego Unified Biliteracy Seal as well. Class of 2019 definitely demonstrated their leadership skills as scholars, as athletes, as community leaders. They served as our founding student equity ambassadors, and they worked to improve the connection, the involvement, and the inclusion of all students on their campuses. This class of 2019, this class of students took initiative. They demonstrated agency by organizing responsible demonstrations in the wake of the horrific mass shootings. We are proud of their leadership, and we look forward to seeing how this incredible group of young men and women are going to change the world and make San Diego a better place. We could not be more proud of you. Thank you, class of 2019.
Thank you. Thank you all for those reports. Now we'll move quickly to the board reports, starting on my right here. Mr. Beiser.
Thank you. I want to thank Acacia Theed this evening. She's been doing a lot of very important work. Acacia, thank you very much for all your work with nursing and also with bringing back the early childhood educators, and that's a lot of work, very complex issues there. Thank you very much, Acacia.
Thank you. Dr. Evans.
Yeah, it was a thrill to be at all the different graduations, and when I was talking to the class of Mira Mesa, I said I invited them to come back in 2049 to talk to the class 30 years later to talk about what they had accomplished, and I would try to show up then too if I can. And then I said that I'd also like them to come back in 2099 to share the wisdom that they've learned through their lives.
Thank you. Mr. Beiser. Mr. Barrera.
I just want to thank and congratulate the entire class of 2019, and especially thank the schools that I was able to attend. So our first graduating seniors this year were at East Village High School, the former Early Middle College, because that's the first school that we have on our community college calendar. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to put the Met next year and maybe one other. But I think we'll have a couple of others moving forward. Garfield High, always an amazing ceremony, and the grit that those students demonstrate to overcome significant challenges and make it there and graduate and walk across that stage is always special. Memorial Middle School, amazing group of young people that are mostly, I think, going to move on to San Diego High School and then to some other schools, and then San Diego High School itself, which I think is usually our largest graduating class, and again, phenomenal group of graduates at those schools.
Thank you. Dr. McCrary.
Right, so I also attended graduations, everything from 200 students graduating across the stage to 20. And what I learned from all of them that was similar was the stories that they told and the connections that they made. And what I want to do is share tonight is a video about the connections that students have made during the years. And in this case, it's the older students at Mission Bay High School working with Bernard Elementary students on a science project. So it's older students connecting with younger students in order to develop science so that students then can see their pathway into high school. High school students get an opportunity to reflect back. So we can show that video.
The sensor will measure how many UV rays, or what the UV ray index is here, and it's still in the low range, so right next to it.
Of the water, that's basically just finding the amount of salt that is in the water. You're going to squeeze that, you're going to put it in the water, and then you're going to let go. It's like orange and yellow.
Like yellow. 6.5.
On the left side, what's the number where the blue line ends?
1.030 of 40.
Okay, now what's the number? Do you see a number?
We taught them about the temperature of the water. We taught them the turbidity. We did the plankton tow with them and showed them all the plankton in the water.
How was the experience working with the children?
Working with the kids was really fun. It was nice to be able to teach them this marine science. It was cool because these guys are our future, and so it's nice to know that we're going to have a whole bunch of future scientists coming through.
I'm Bella. And I'm Justin.
How old are you guys?
I'm 10. And I'm 9.
And what school are you guys from?
Barnard Elementary. Yeah, Barnard Elementary.
Can you please tell me what you guys learned today?
We learned about pH, low tide, high tide, and what animals are around here, and how temperature affects the climate of the ocean. Yeah.
What was your guys' favorite experiment?
I think my favorite experiment is with the pH because we got to see how good the water was in the creek.
How was your experience working with high school kids?
I think I would say my experiments, very helpful. Very helpful. They use details, which is nice because as a 4th grader, you don't really know much words, so they kind of simplify things.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Learning about pH. I also attended several graduations and have been busy over the last couple of weeks. I also attended a parent event that Mid-City had. They brought in all the various groups and had a celebration of their graduation from attending 3 classes. And they're expanding that program so that they can provide us with some leaders for all of these district-level cluster meetings and so forth for the CAC and all of that SSC. And I think that's a great idea. So the actual cluster took on the response of working with parents in order to get some leaders and doing some training for them. That's an ongoing issue for us as a district to have representatives. And so I hope that's something that can be used as a model for all the other clusters so that we can have representation. Thank you all for your reports. And let us now move to E. We have no student instructional matters. We'll move to F. I would like a motion to adopt the board consent agenda items F1 through F5.
So moved.
Second on that?
Second.
Which one? Richard happened to be looking that way. It's the second one. Do we have any speakers on this item? No speakers? Okay, let us please vote on that also. And that passes 5-0. We will now move to G, operational matters for the board. And
Madam President, could we move item G1 through 4?
Yes, I believe we have something going on with
I'd like to
4.
make that motion, please.
I'll second that motion.
Do we have speakers?
Could we separate out
just a
item
second.
G4?
Do we have speakers on G4?
Yes, you have one speaker on G4.
Okay.
Okay, I'll move item G1 through 3.
Thank you. Do we have okay, and there are no speakers, so please vote on that. Okay. All right. gives us 5-0 for that. And now we move to item G4. Need a separate motion on that?
I'll move item G4.
Okay, a second on that?
Second?
Okay, at this point, we have no staff presentation, but we do have a speaker.
We have a staff presentation.
Oh, we do, okay.
I don't know that it's a presentation. It's not a staff presentation, but staff is available because we're anticipating there may be some questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walsh. Please call the...
Sean Loescher, please.
Good evening, Superintendent Martin, President Whitehurst Payne, Vice President Lee Evans, and to the Board of Trustees. I'm Dr. Sean Loescher. My information is on file. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Urban Discovery Academy, TK through 12, and I'm delighted to be here tonight in support of what is happening. On behalf of our supporters, including Assemblymember Todd Gloria, UC Extensions and Mary Walshock, the UC Design Lab, the San Diego Regional EDC, the Downtown San Diego Partnership, and many others, we are so pleased and thankful to their staff collaboration in order to bring this item forward this evening. The item that has been up for stakes is our move from one of the two existing locations for our high school, from 232 West Ash in Little Italy to 1400 Park. As outlined in staff analysis, we've had a long road to get here, but at last we have a permanent location for our high school. This is a DSA-approved facility that represents a safer place for our students to go to school. As with the opening of any school, there are always a period of speculation about what might happen. We want to thank you for your trust in opening up grades 9, 10, 11, 12 for Urban Discovery Academy, and we're so pleased that this year our 11th graders finally have gotten into standardized testing. The previews of those scores have demonstrated that our high school is not only viable, but has the highest test scores of any school south of the 8 in 11th grade. We also appreciate the ongoing staff collaboration to help us get better and stronger by looking at various items from our financials. We're pleased that over the last 2 years since my joining Urban Discovery Academy, we've been able to demonstrate that we have secure financials for our future. And we also want to thank this evening the San Diego Community College District, specifically Dr. Constance Carroll, for allowing for us to have an agreement for 1400 Park, which represents a multiple year rate schedule. So that way, as our school grows, we can continue to have financial health and invest those dollars back in our students. Again, what this move allows for us to do is meet our currently approved charter levels that you approved in late 2016 in our charter renewal. And it lets us be squarely focused back on education and not trying to find a permanent home. We want to thank you all for your consideration this evening, and specifically wanted to thank the staff of the Charter School Office for being highly collaborative and working together with us on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, that was it for the speakers, right? Board members, do you have any questions or concerns?
Right. For Deirdre, I understand the recommendation is to approve. However, within the text and the content of all this, there are a lot of concerns about the financial status of the school. And it seems to mainly center around $27 million in bond funding. Could you explain about that bond funding?
Certainly. Thank you. So yes, you are correct. Staff is recommending approval of this material revision to Urban's charter. Even though we are recommending approval, we did detail in our narrative a couple of concerns that we have regarding the school. Essentially, it's centered around the bond, which in the 2016 proposal that UDA/Russ Boulevard Holdings, an LLC, submitted to the community college in an effort to secure the property, details essentially a complete development of this site. We included on page 3 of the staff's report kind of a summary of the construction. It was a 3-phase proposed construction, a schedule of the bonds. It's estimating $27 million plus in bonds. And we did kind of detail what happened with this site. They brought this site to us in 2016 initially. This board denied the request to move to the site at that time due to some outstanding financial and construction issues around the site. It needed, as I recall, a seismic retrofit inside. And so this is the second time for this board to be reviewing this site. We did try to clarify with the community college sort of the expectations when they entered into this ground lease. There's a long-term 99-year ground lease with Russ Boulevard Holdings. And so we tried to clarify, what exactly is the expectation in regards to this proposal. Does UDA have to stick to this proposal? Is there variation in it? Can they choose not to do it at all? We couldn't really get clarification on that issue, and so that's a good portion of why this remains in our write-up, because we can't clarify what it would be, when it would be, how much it would be. So that's the first section that has to do with the, I would say, unanswered questions about future bond/debt obligations. We are concerned with the school's finances if they take on a significant additional debt obligation. Without a debt obligation, financially, the school has corrected the deficit spending that we saw in prior years, and they have an ending fund balance that meets our minimum reserve requirement, and they would stay on track with that. The other issue that we had was with the high school enrollment. As Mr. Loescher mentioned, there were some, when the charter renewed, there were some enrollment projections that this board approved that included K-12 enrollment. The K-8 site has hit their enrollment targets. The high school site has fallen substantially below their projections, anywhere from 40 to 80% roughly below the projections depending on the year. And then we also see what appears to be some matriculation issues going into and within the high school grades. So for instance, on table 12, we saw in 18-19, all three of the high school grade levels had decreases in enrollment, anywhere from 26 to 54%, depending on the grade level. So, as you're all aware, enrollment and ADA drives your funding. If you're going to miss your enrollment projections by 40%, that can throw off your budget. We did project out what those net assets and changes would be in Table 13 if they missed it by 40 or 42%. And we do see that it can send the school back into deficit spending. Their ending fund balance can withstand the declines, the deficit spending in the years, as long as there's no new significant debt obligations that get added into the mix.
So I guess I'm trying to understand why there's lack of clarity about this bond issue, because it seems like certain information is provided to community colleges and then other information is, well, it's not consistent or complete, the information provided to the community college district when they made the lease and what they're providing here. What is the problem with clarifying that?
We've just had some difficulty in clarifying it. We attempted to see if what was submitted in the proposal, in UDA's proposal, which includes a 3-phase construction and a $27 million bond, that's what's included in the proposal. We reached out to the community college district to say, do they have to do this exact proposal, or is there room for them to, for instance, say, we're not going to develop this property as we detailed in the proposal. And we couldn't get clarification on if they have to do it exactly as it's proposed or if there's some variations that can happen in there. And all of the written documents that we see related to the lease and the board items from the college, all of it references development of the property. We've detailed it in the report. We saw it in the actual board item, in the resolution of intention to lease, in the ground lease, there's one other document that we saw it in.
Did you get clarification? Did you get clarification from Sean, from the CEO, on that issue?
What clarification are you seeking?
On the difference between the documentation submitted to us and what has been approved by the community college
yeah.
regarding the bond.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. To open with, it's a 99-year ground lease, and all 90-year ground leases that come from the community college district have the right in boilerplate language for you to develop the property. On a 99-year lease, you do not know what's going to happen in the future, and it would be irresponsible for us to enter into an agreement that would not allow for us to develop the land should we have those. We were asked as part of that to make a submission as to what that might look like. It does not bind us, is our understanding, does not bind us to that submission, but it does have to demonstrate that we have the forethought and knowledge to what that would be. We have no vote from our board to incur new bond debt. We had listened respectfully to what staff's input was. We have advised them that in order to have a future bond debt, that would mean we would have to look at what our enrollment numbers were, and that in order to do that, that would represent an enrollment increase of over 10 to 20%, which is clearly a material revision that we would have to come and discuss here. So that is our understanding. We have stated that as our understanding, and from the community college district side, that has always been their understanding when communicating with us.
And what happens with the 99-year lease if the charter school ceases to exist? Is San Diego Unified still obligated to make those lease payments?
No, San Diego Unified is not obligated to make those lease payments.
And then the $27 million in bond obligations, is that in any way encumber the bond dollars that San Diego Unified disperses?
No, trustee, it does not.
Thank you, sir.
It is not tied to your bond.
Okay, thanks. That's all I need to know.
Do you currently have an $11 million bond?
We currently do have an $11 million bond for 840 14th Street, which is our permanent location for the TK through 8 site.
And when is that completed?
I believe that's 27 years out.
27, okay.
And we'll get regular reports, Deidre, on this. We'll get regular reports. You will monitor and give us regular reports, annual reports on what's happening, or even closer than that if something's going awry.
Yes, so as part of charter oversight, we are responsible for monitoring the finances of a charter school, and so they are required to submit to us the 4 annual reports, same as a school district, so the budget, the 2 interim reports, the unaudited actuals. So we do monitor all of those things.
And if something comes up even before then, you would have access to find out about it.
If it's in one of those reports, so basically every 3 months is where we're seeing details. As an authorizer, we do have the right to make reasonable requests of a charter school. So for instance, we recently requested the school's general ledger, and they provided it to us. So we can request a good chunk of financial documents.
The questions, Michael?
So there was another issue was raised regarding enrollment, and enrollment is important because that's how you generate your funding. And there's been, for the transition, matriculating from the to the 8th grade to the high school, there's been overestimation of enrollment, and I'm wondering what's the history of that, and what is your correction for that, and what do you see as a future?
Sure. Our correction would be to find a permanent home for the high school, so that way we have parents knowing where our students are going. Secondly, many of our projections that were initially made were based upon the anticipation of a facility. When we took on 232 West Ash Street, which is a former county office building for alternative education, we had a limited portion of that building that we're using. Currently, by what we are seeking for our standards, which are based not only upon class size numbers, which range between 24:1 to 28:1 for a student-teacher ratio. In addition to that, we also seek a certain amount of space for the experience for students to work together. Based upon that, our current location is not really slated to house more than 100 students without it expanding out. That building is slated eventually for demolition, and we did not want to invest funds into a building that would be slated for demolition, as we thought that would be a responsible use of student funds.
Yes.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Yeah. So I don't see where it is right here, but Deirdre, in terms of the credit rating, it was BB minus or something like that, or I'm not sure if I'm BB something.
Yes. BB negative.
BB negative.
Yes.
So what is the reason for such a low, I mean, we're supposed to look at the financial viability. What's the reason for such a low credit rating?
They were rated at BB, and then it was downgraded to BB minus. What the S&P reported in a press release is that it was lowered based on their view of UDA's unexpectedly weakened financial profile with the school's first year of deficit operations in fiscal 2016, moderating liquidity position, and weak lease-adjusted maximum annual debt service coverage. In addition, as of fall 2016, UDA expanded to a high school program and is looking to secure additional lease space, which could present continued operational pressure and near-term transition risk. So that was the reason that S&P gave for downgrading the outlook on their bond.
I mean,
Related to that, John, that means that they have to pay more for their bond, right?
I don't know if it means that they have to pay more.
Do you have to pay more?
Well, first of all charter schools in the United States were simultaneously downgraded at that time by 1/2 step from S&P. That was not unique to UDA at all. It happened across the United States. That was due to S&P recalculating how they would evaluate charter schools, and during that reevaluation, they issued statements across the board. That did not change our status in any way. It did change our status, which is now BB negative, but it is BB negative stable, and that is where we stand.
I think our bonds are what? The school districts are?
Highest rating.
AAA+. We're AAA+. Okay. Just
You're investment grade, and we are not considered investment grade.
Okay.
Can I ask Deidre just a clarifying question following up from a question that I heard, Madam President?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to know, so who would pay if they went out of business without being able to pay their bond?
So by statute, charter schools are responsible for their own debts and liabilities and obligations as long as the authorizer performs its oversight duties. So as long as we, by statute, our oversight duties are essentially receiving their 4 financial reports each year and monitoring their financial condition, conducting an annual site visit with the school, designating a contact person at each school. So as long as we're conducting our oversight, then we are insulated from the debts and obligations of the school.
So would it be the district's taxpayers that have that debt? Who has that debt?
So the school or the LLC technically has the debt. If the school goes out of business, whatever they have in their reserves or ending fund balance is used to pay off their liabilities. If there's a deficit at that point, then I think you're right. It's the taxpayers that lose.
Mr. Pereira. And then.
So when does Urban Discovery come up for renewal?
They just are finishing up their first year in their renewal charter term, so they'll come back to us in roughly 3.5 years or so.
Roughly 3.5 years, yeah. And so some of these issues may arise at the time of the petition for renewal if there seems to be problems with the finances of the school. But let's say sometime between now and the next 3.5 years, if through the oversight we identify that, Urban Discovery goes out for a loan and we have concerns that it's not going to be able to meet its obligations, what happens then?
So the loans and the bonds are done in the private market. They're not done through Measure YY or any of the district avenues. So they are done in the private market. If we identify concerns, we will reach out to the school. Our response to them can be different. It can be just a letter of concern saying you need to focus on this. We did in 17-18, we asked the school to do a 3rd interim report because we saw as of January 31st, 2018, they were projecting a negative ending fund balance. So we can do things like that. We can request corrective action plans. If the school is unable to correct it, then we always have the avenue of initiating a revocation process. And so we would take the necessary steps through that with this board to issue those notices.
And we have done that to charters in the past.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know the staff has put a lot of time into this and going back and forth about this whole thing with the school. And you've even listed, you know, at the end of the item, potential findings for denial that could be used. I just don't feel like I have sufficient information about, you know, with these concerns about the financial debt obligations and so forth, and what may or may not happen to support it, but I'm just going to abstain. I'm not going to oppose it either. So that's just my position.
Well, a couple other questions. Related to the what you said earlier, and what I thought I heard you say is that in order to go for a bond, like the $27 million bond, that would require a certain, that would require a major revision, which means you would come to us prior to doing that.
That is accurate, sir. And in addition, I did have somebody whispering in my ear for clarification. Should the charter default on its bonds, that bonds does not go to local taxpayers. That goes back to a debt to the investors that made it, and they do that through a private write-down service on their own. It does not go back locally.
Okay, so then one last tangential question. Because funding is based on enrollment is based on parents, students choosing to attend your school. You stated the excellent outcome of your 11th grade class. My concern is with the other K-8, which is not as impressive. And so, and of all of the 21 comparison schools, as has been noted, and maybe Deidre can go into more detail, it appears that you're at the bottom of those. You did not show, you showed less gains in math and language arts when compared to your demographic schools as well as your geographic schools. Am I correct on that, Deidre?
Yes, so when we did the academic review, we pulled in, by statute, we're required to look at two groups of schools, essentially. There's what we call the otherwise attend school, and those are the district schools that the charter school is pulling the majority of its students from. And then we're also required to look at or take into consideration demographically similar schools. So when those schools that they pull from aren't good demographic matches, we expand out and we find schools that match across ideally multiple subgroups. So urban has 4 subgroups, so we try to match across those. We pulled 21 schools total. And so when we take the whole of those 21 schools, urban discovery in ELA and math outperforms 6 of the 21. The percentage is higher if we were able to stay just within the otherwise attend school, but the statute requires us to take into consideration demographically similar schools.
What I was referring to, so that's a comparison. What I was referring to was the amount of change over the.
I apologize.
And no, that's still good information. It basically identifies the issue and the concern. And I guess but if you take a look at how much change you have made in comparison to your demographic schools and your geographic schools, you're on the bottom end of that. And so I'm wondering, what are you aware of that as well? Yeah. And what is your plan?
Yeah, our board of directors took note of that. This was information provided during the revision, during the renewal process. And one of the major changes that occurred were as follows. The principals were replaced. The chief executive was replaced. A academic plan for looking at what we were doing and review process began. Those early efforts were partially focused on the high school as it was growing, but have continued this year and will continue next year. We do not deny that those were the scores posted. We are paying attention to them intently. And rather than say, let's look at one facet of this or another, we are paying attention to it and are hard at work on it.
But if this was a renewal request, it would be problematic, and I guess you're aware of that.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
No other questions? I just think overall it's really important, Deidre, that we be kept abreast of what's going on with the school. And and don't wait for a year, 3.5 years or whatever. We need this information on a regular basis and on a quarterly basis.
Okay, we can provide the
that
board
would be
with
helpful.
quarterly memos and updates.
But to be clear, for example, if they go out for a bond, they're not required to gain any permission from us to do that.
That is correct. They engage in private bonds on their own.
Right. I mean, they don't have to come to us in any, in terms of, there's no condition of approval by us for them to do it. So when you're talking about, you're going to be informed and we can say we have concerns, but we don't have any leverage. Right. Okay.
I'm sorry, our student representative, Jerry. Jane.
All right, quick question about the replacement of the individuals who you have just mentioned. At what instance or when were they replaced, really? Because to my understanding, this report was made in the past month. When they were replaced also plays into effect of how pertinent this data is.
Sure. The high school principal was replaced January last year. The elementary middle school principal was replaced in final at the end of last year. I was appointed as the chief executive at the end of last year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Outstanding
Are there
question.
any other questions? No, please vote on this. That's 4-0 and 1 abstention.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Okay, let us move on to the next item. Thank you, Deidre. Thank you all, staff, for that. Let us move now to item H1, and this is a public hearing. First read on it. Would you please present the item? Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Whitehurst-Payne. H1 is the public hearing and the first reading of the proposed 1920 LCAP plan that we just spent last Wednesday 8 hours on to go into detail on what's included in that plan. But as you know, our plan is aligned to, it's year 3 of a 3-year LCAP plan. And in presenting the plan to the board workshop, we went over all of the goals, closing the achievement gap with high expectations for all, the access to a broad and challenging curriculum, quality leadership, teaching and learning, positive school environment and climate, and family and community engagement with highly regarded neighborhood schools that are all coordinated with Goal 6 being well-orchestrated district-wide support services. Those 6 goals round out the district's plan and the actions, programs, services, and budgets to go with it. And this entire report, I would say, if people should read it the way Dr. Mike did, with an incredible amount of detail. Everything in terms of our plans, programs, actions, services are included, including the stakeholder engagement that was involved in implementing and bringing forward year 3 of the plan, and that we decided several years ago that a full-day workshop was warranted, because in the very beginning of the LCAP, we tried to do it at a board meeting, and it just wasn't enough time to go into the level with the depth and specificity that we believe is warranted on the overall plan that we're using to deliver on the outcomes for our students. So all the information was contained in the workshop and in the item tonight.
Are there any speakers? No speakers on H1? This is just a public hearing, so it is now closed. No additional comments from you or any of the board members. Let us move now to item H2, the public hearing and first reading of proposed 2019-20 district budget. Superintendent, please present this.
Thank you, and this definitely goes with the one that we just had. This is the budget to pay for the programs, actions, plans, and services that go with our LCAP. And so I'll have Dr. Ottinger and Ms. Thied, our leaders in this area, to talk about that. It's the first read of our budget with second read coming up next week. Dr. Ottinger.
Good evening. Thank you, Superintendent Martin, President Whitehurst-Payne, Vice President Evans, members of the board. This evening, we are bringing forward the first read of the 1920 budget, which includes our guidance from the San Diego County Office of Education and the state, our projections, along with the details on our yearly trans. So first, we will begin with our priorities. At the direction of the board and the superintendent, the proposed 1920 budget has been drafted to align with the following funding priorities. And while we consider these priorities, we also take into account the board's guiding principles for finance. And so as we take a look at these, it moves us to some of the financial considerations that we are working through. We are paying close attention to the 2021 budget shortfall. We're also paying close attention to the CalPERS and CalSTRS rates. Also, keen attention to our enrollment, as we know. And as of this presentation, unless I've missed something in the last few moments on Twitter, which is certainly possible, we are still awaiting the final budget from Sacramento. We know that the board is aware of the unprecedented number of shifts that we are experiencing this year, which is the first budget under Governor Newsom. A little bit more detail on that in a bit. In terms of the guidance, it is our practice to follow the guidance from the state and the San Diego County Office of Education. So as mentioned by the superintendent, this is part of our LCAP. The county office sent us a guidance letter on May 28th to ensure that we take into account the May revise. So the numbers that you're seeing this evening follow that state and county guidance to account for the numbers as listed in the May revise. And again, we must submit our budget to the county office by July 1st. If there are any substantive changes, we must submit within 45 days of the state budget adoption. So with the rules of engagement in consideration, taking a look here at our revenue assumptions, you'll notice that the COLA, as stated in the May revise, is 3.26, which is actually still what we are hearing from the different potential agreements with the different elements in Sacramento. And on the topic of the cost of living adjustment, this is a consistent public reminder of the areas of continued cost as we look at these cost of living adjustments for the district listed on this next slide. As we look at our expenditures, you will note the expected increased costs and then also the implications for our shortfall, which is listed there at 58.3 projected. Now again, that is projected based on the May revise, not necessarily the significant conversations that we are all being informed of formally and informally regarding what is potentially transpiring. And so as we mentioned at the May revise presentation, an unprecedented number of shifts and changes. So we see here what, as of the May revise numbers, what it looks like for our potential budget shortfall and the different elements that are coming into place with the special education. In terms of expenses, as we look at our cost of living adjustment, before we were to make any other program adjustments, we do have to continue to grapple with our big five in terms of expenses, which again would be our utilities that, thanks to continued work with the propositions and Prop YY, et cetera, as the rates of electricity and others go up, we are attempting to continue to mitigate to the best degree possible with construction and nice non-cloudy days like today to bring down those costs. Step and column, the special education piece, also health and welfare and the pensions, all important cost factors that are increasing as we look at the district's cost of living adjustments. Which leads us to, again, we are comfortable presenting these projections to the Board of Education in public based on the May revise. However, we are also seeing potential agreements from the state that will impact, if these agreements conclude, will impact our fiscal realities. So again, as of the May revise, that is our last formal guidance. But we do expect that we may have shifts, and most notably, based on potential agreements in Sacramento for the San Diego Unified School District, potential shifts with special education. That number of what we've received guidance on has shifted significantly from January, where it was a It was a certain model from the governor's office that this organization has supported and our advocates have staunchly supported. In May, the governor continued with the guidance in the May revise to keep with the equity model, which is the funding following the students that are of greatest need, which San Diego Unified was going to continue to benefit since we serve our students qualify as higher need. However, we do need to at least share informally with the board in public that the conversations seem to have potentially continued down the path of not an equity model but an equality model, in which there would be a equalization where school districts that were receiving less funding for special education, not necessarily based on need but based on overall formula. In the formula model, the school districts would increase, and that would actually not help San Diego Unified at all. So we're watching that carefully, as that could have a significant impact. But again, nothing is finalized yet. And then also, in an interesting note, there's been more conversation about the STRS and PERS rates, and just we're watching it carefully because we have a different number of employees that are STRS and PERS, and while best intentions potentially of including Cal PERS, for San Diego Unified, depending on what the actual formula looks like, if it is the same amount of money that was originally in the May revise dedicated to STRS, if that is split, if that pot of money is the same pot of money, and we're not sure yet, and it's split amongst STRS and PERS, that will have an impact potentially not helpful to our overall budget based on the number of folks that we have that qualify for Cal STRS. So with that, just want to make sure that we are being clear. In our budget report here, we do see these numbers are STRS and PERS based on what we are seeing in the May revise. I won't go into the detail again on what those potential impacts will be, but certainly depending on the enacted budget, we will report. The next is our required statement for excess reserves, which again is our 2% required reserve, along with additional funds that must be carried over, which includes the aggregate from site funds with allowable expenses. So it's not necessarily the district's funds, it's the holding space for the school sites with their allowable expenses. For example, the Civic Center rentals continue or an approved carryover. So this is our statement of our excess reserves and the why. Which leads us to, as earlier mentioned, we have there's some conversations about ratings and yield, and we actually have a ratings call tomorrow. As we get the final rating, we expect a continued positive rating for our efforts and fiscal stability tomorrow for our TRANS, our tax revenue anticipation notes. So that rating will be issued, and our TRANS will be closing on the 25th. And speaking of calendars, that's where we land here in the green box, which is trending towards our budget adoption. Again, as a reminder, this evening is a first read, and we will be back here in 1 week to the board to seek approval. And we thank you, and on behalf of the entire team, thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation this evening.
Thank you. That concludes the report.
Speakers.
Yeah, we next have speakers on
Yes,
your.
we have one speaker on H2, Anne Marie Haney.
Good evening. It's very nice to see you all. As you can imagine, I was going to say pleased, I should say elated, to see the Visual Performing Arts in such a high position on your priority list for the budget. So that gives me hope that means that there will be a step forward in trying to realize some of the goals of the strategic plan, which you know was approved in 2016. Specifically, after the loss of the 4 elementary positions, our teachers were then tasked with going once a week to as many as 9 to 10 schools, seeing as many as 500 students plus, and transporting instruments in and out of the classrooms for all of these students, most of whom did not provide their own instruments. So I remain hopeful that we will begin to have an improved staffing so that we can provide quality music education to more students. And I'm very grateful for your dedication and recognition of the value of a broad education and curriculum for all students. I really am very grateful to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne Marie. We know that you're committed to music. We've seen those instruments out there at the warehouse.
Excuse me, I forgot to say this is my 50th year. I just realized it. 2000.
You are definitely committed to it. We've now had the public hearing, and that's closed. Are there any additional comments from superintendent or board members?
Yes. Obviously, one of the big factors is the enrollment. And I see for going from 1920 to the following 2 years, it's basically approximately 1,500 decline each year. I don't remember if that was consistent with what we had for this year. Was it a 1,500 decline?
It is, and that's actually an interesting point, Dr. Evans, in terms of the way that enrollment is accounted. We have there is a 1 year, especially for school districts with declining enrollment, there's a 1 year carryover from year to year, and so that the actuals are potentially accounted for the following year. It's a bit of a legislative hold harmless.
So it's essentially a 1 year delay on the decrease. I mean, we're 1 year behind is what you're saying?
That's accurate, and that's the district's option based on which scenario is potentially better. If enrollment has improved, then you can report actuals. If the enrollment has declined, it provides a bit of a gradual release, if you will.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't know if the next 2 or 3 years, if there's been any other new factors that have been taken into consideration by the demographer. In terms of, I know that the charter school enrollment has also been, total charter school enrollment has been going down.
You're asking about how we got to 98 from 100, like what factors went into play?
Right.
Correct, and so it is the expectation of, first of all, continued trends with overall enrollment, but also this would be the actual ADA, and so looking at the enrollment, but also based on how many students and that overall attendance. So it's a two-factor piece. Mm-hmm. There aren't any significant significant factors as an aggregate, but it is looking out to the degree possible. For example, the superintendent's been working on how can we help have better projections around the military and seeing what levels of different understanding we can get from different fleet commanders and others. And it's really the roll-up of each school and any factors which leads to that overall. So it's not necessarily one factor in particular, other than knowing that the overall trend is folks in San Diego looking at data from SANDAG and other sources that there tends to be folks are staying in San Diego longer, the older generations are staying in their single family homes, and so it's just those overall factors for San Diego as the cost of living increases otherwise.
And then how is the preschool enrollment fit into this?
In terms of what?
Well, I mean, is that included in these numbers?
It does. Okay. Oh, sorry, these particular numbers? Not necessarily.
Right.
Does it factor into as we do overall planning? Yes, it does.
Right.
But the state's been going down too, right?
On that.
The state has been going down. The state of California the enrollment has been going down. It's not just San Diego in a vacuum.
I believe that's the case. I would need to double check.
That's what I've heard.
However, I believe that is the case.
But basically, the K-12 enrollment has been declining, but the preschool enrollment is increasing. Correct?
I know that our efforts are to increase, and in terms of the specifics, I need to double check that in terms of the
you think it's gone up?
Yes, it's been going up, yeah.
It's been going up. Okay.
That's coming from, we used to have a lot of vacancies, and now we don't have as many vacancies as we used to, so you can see that it's been going up.
Right.
And we've been recruiting in that area,
right.
so that the community knows that we have preschool for all.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
it's an opposite trend, and it's also potential feeder for the K-12. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Again?
Well, I want to acknowledge you and staff for the complicated work you have to go through and the dedication to preparing these reports. And one issue I had in understanding the report had to do with the reserves. And so I was looking at a number of the various pages, and staff has helped me to reach clarification on a number of those. But I'm still trying to reconcile a couple of issues. And maybe just for example, if we can take a look at page 9 for the required reserve and compare that with page 11.
Okay.
What's the reason for the different numbers, or what's the rationale there? On slide 9.
You're talking about slide 9
Slide
to...
9 is in, and I think it's slide 11.
On slide 9, that is the...
Is that the 2%?
That would be the...
2% plus?
So slide 9 would be the showing that there is the reserve, but no additional surplus above the 2%. The slide 11 is the actuals on what we had discussed was the fund balance, Dr. Mike.
Okay.
So slide 11 is really that overall breakdown. Slide 9 would be showing if there was, we always want a balance.
Okay. I still need more work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? This is our first reading on this, and we'll be required to approve this next week, so we must get it right by then and move forward. Thank you, staff, because I know this is a lot of hard work that goes into this. Now, let us move to item H3.
I move approval of item H3.
Second.
Okay, we have the motion on the floor. With that, do we have any staff presentation? Any speakers? Then please vote on that. And that passes 5-0. Thank you. Now let us go to item I. We had a couple of speakers on a couple of items.
5 and 6.
5 and 6, yes.
Yes, items I5 and I6, Francine Maxwell.
I'll move item 5 and 6 so we can have a speaker on it.
Thank you. Motion and second by Dr. McCurry. Yes.
How much time I have?
3 minutes.
For item I5 and I6? Okay. Francine Maxwell, Community Member District E. I want to share with the board, why do you continually hide things in the consent agenda? You say that you have stakeholder engagement? That's not true. You say that you're transparent? That's not true. I5 is $1.4 million. Where is it going? To what schools are they going to get to partake? Is it north of 8? Is it south of 8? You continually use the word various. It's a public meeting, and the public should have access to the backup to know specifically where the $1.4 million is going. You have the next item is I6. It's $100,000 for kids' assemblies to tell their story. At what schools will those be held at? Everybody knows that San Diego Unified is not an equal opportunity district. So there's some children that get access to assemblies that other children don't. So it would be nice if you would spell out where $100,000 is going, where $1.4 million of our tax dollars are going, what would be the goal, where's the matrix that we can find. We need at some point to really look at the word transparency. You have doctors on the diocese. You only have one employee. I think that you can direct your one employee that moving forward to gain trust in the public education realm, that you are more transparent, that you are sharing information. $1.4 million goes a long way if it's distributed equally, and we know that this district doesn't do things equal. So I'm asking once again, and I'll continue to ask, at what point are we going to be transparent and mean it, and look at the real definition? And when you you say stakeholder engagement, stakeholder engagement means that there is a fair exchange of information. You don't continually hide things in the consent agenda. We've done this for the past 7 years. Everything is buried in the consent agenda. Let's pull some things out and let's bring some presenters here to show us what you're spending $1.4 million on and $100,000 on, and make sure that all children across San Diego Unified is unified. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? No. Any more discussion? Let's vote, please. Thank you, and that passes 5-0. Thank you, and that brings us to item J1, which is non-agenda public testimony. Do you have any speakers on that?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we have 27 speakers on non-agenda items.
1 minute.
Okay, each speaker will have 1 minute to address the board. Testimony on non-agenda items is limited to a maximum of 15 minutes per topic. Public testimony speakers are limited to a maximum of 3, and we can change that time depending upon the number of speakers, so we're giving everyone 1 minute. If an issue needs further attention, the board may refer the matter to the superintendent for review and/or investigation. And there is no deferral of time allowed. We ask that the speakers focus their comments on the issues and not on individuals. When you begin speaking, the green light will come on, a yellow light when you have 1 minute left, and that will be right off the bat. And when your time is up, the red light will appear and a bell will ring. The lights are located directly in front of the podium on the dais next to Marty Swolf's Board Action Officer. And please finish your sentence when your time is up. Okay, let's hear the testimony.
All right, so we'll call the first 10 folks if they come to the podium and line up, please. Also, if you could please say your name before you start speaking so I can check you off. Citizen, Gretchen Gordon, I.G. Han, Alicia Yan, Catherine Thiemann, Wen Wei Liang, Nancy Danella, Christopher Poblit, Leela Poblit, and Layla Aziz.
Sharon Whitehurst Payne was on PBS yesterday, choosing her words carefully regarding the nationwide search for Lincoln administrative replacements. Missing from her comments was any acknowledgement whatsoever of the biggest problems at Lincoln that have been well documented. 1, tolerating violence. One example, a near-fatal stabbing of a student with a knife that had been returned by school officials to the perpetrator. Turns out the perpetrator should have never been enrolled at Lincoln. We have an entire juvenile court school system for these students. 2, a stand-down response to daily violent fights that security places bets on and leaves students injured. 3, illegal response to crimes against minors on campus. A nonverbal student was sodomized, again, by a student who didn't belong at Lincoln due to his past offenses. This crime was covered up, and the one teacher who tried to expose it was targeted mercilessly until he took his own life. 4, sexual predation of trafficking of students, and perhaps the most authentic hornet here is Shamiko Harris, a graduate of Lincoln, who entrusted his 2 eldest sons to the school. Both boys have long-lasting physical injuries due to being targeted and attacked.
Thank you.
And
You may turn
Shamiko
in your
Harris
speech.
received 2 days in jail due to you all.
You may turn it over. Thank you.
Do not jail our parents.
Next.
Sorry, she did not say her name. I don't know who that was.
Okay.
Is the mic on? There we go. Good evening. My name is Catherine Thiemann, and I'm coming before you tonight to talk about the issue of grooming behaviors, or the pre-sort of sexual abuse behaviors. San Diego you have a good policy defining sexual abuse and harassment and explaining how to report, but the policy is silent on these behaviors, such as a teacher being alone with a student outside of class, inviting a student to the adult's home, etc. I'm making it short. I want to let you know that 3 California districts have adopted policies specifically addressing these behaviors, and I want to draw these policies to your attention. Grossmont Union High School District's Board Policy 4119.26 offers guidelines for employee-student interactions, including consequences for those violating them. San Francisco Unified School District's Board Policy 4019.1 governs professional adult/student boundaries, and it, like Grossmont, it covers electronic as well as face-to-face. Redlands copied San Francisco, and I respectfully urge you to consider doing the same. Thank you for keeping our students.
Thank you. Next. Yes.
Yeah, I believe those were submitted to us in an email. I think we have a copy of all those recommended policies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Nancy Danella, and I am the Director of Community Engagement and Outreach Programs for the IQ Air Foundation. The IQ Air Foundation is dedicated to bringing clean air to millions of children nationwide, specifically starting with California. I've done some research and seen the areas in San Diego, National City, Barrio Logan, and many of the cities where they're located by the ports are vastly polluted with PM 2.5 particulate levels that are through the roof. I'm here to talk to you how the foundation can help you. This is no cost to the school. I want to re-energize that feeling. There's no cost to the school districts. This is a community project. I write grant applications to the state of California Air Resource Board to help get funding for these children, preschools, elementary school, middle schools, high schools that are suffering from asthma, and especially early education. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have this.
Thank you. Next.
Christopher Poblete. I speak for the people of San Diego with respect to we demand accountability. You guys stated that the system is broken, and the system is broken because it starts here in this boardroom. You guys are not listening to the voices of the people of San Diego, the families and the needs of San Diego. Where is our voice? Is our voice only 2 minutes every 2 weeks during these board meetings? Is that it? The people of San Diego want choice. We do not just want choice, we want the right choice. Yet, no one is listening to us. Over and over and over again, you guys vote against the people and the needs of the community. You guys go into this boardroom with a predetermined vote already in your mind, and this is just a show. This is a show for us to feel like you guys are listening to us, but you vote the other way. We need policies to put you accountable for the way you vote.
Thank you. Next. Thank you.
You don't respect our school and others.
Thank you. Next. Do we have other speakers? Would you call it any others?
Okay, so the next 10 on the list would be Wilhelmina Bradley, Aramik Glass-Blake, Cindy Barros, Jamie Wilson, Ann Barron, Christy Hill, Amy Zamudio, Kimberly Coons-Banks, Robert Patman, and Sandra Punta.
Hi, Madam President. I asked myself what the lesson you're trying to teach me from God. My parents taught me the giant in front of me, meaning some of you on the board, Cindy, Richard, is never bigger than God in me. No matter how big your house or car or bank account is, the grave is the same. I may be little, but I'm a fierce warrior and advocate for my child, and so many more. I can honestly and truly say, Richard, Cindy, and a few of you other board members, you don't care about all children. So thank you. These are both my boys. They'll never go to prison because that's where you guys would want to send them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Cindy Burrows, Lincoln High PTO. You all know me, welcome. I'm going to read from my statement. You do have handouts there where I like each board representative to have. It's not conducted. I'm going to read my statement. First, the manner in which the admin staff was released, executed from the position, sent a wave of unnecessary attention through the community, closely resembling the modern-day lynching by San Diego Unified School District. Historically, when employees are released from their position, they are called to normal street, conversation had, paperwork issued, paperwork retrieved. Nowhere else in the district is HR staff deployed to the site to remove email accounts, bombard staff with an unnerving and uncomfortable environment. Would the same tactic be employed north of the 8? Not only no. Wouldn't all of these be kept confidential? Individuals would have been talked to privately and taken to the site? Yes. This answer shows the blatant disrespect of Lincoln community as a whole. What was nurturing about this approach? Second, the selection process email sent out listing Michael Brunker having agreed to take lead of a selection process. What position is this for? Why is a non-educator position as a lead for a position that deals with the education of children? The word employed has been used. Has Michael been given a contract by the district? All valid questions that should be answered by public servants who are in charge of our tax dollars.
Thank you.
I'm not going to stop. With that said, there are numerous educational relationships that the district has. There are more than enough subject matter experts who can assist with this process. This is ultimately the HR responsibility.
Next speaker.
I myself have no confidence in them. I have compiled a list of individuals and groups who are better suited to assist with the selection process. The Hornet Alumni Association, Ms. Linda Daugherty, UCSD, Dr. Luke Wood, San Diego State University, Mr. Frank Ingo, Dr. Joey Estrada, Dr. Marissa Vasquez, and Mr. David Page.
Next speaker.
Sharon,
Is that
you
it?
owe this community more of a responsibility than what's happening. You're going to appoint a recreational director, somebody who deals with athletics and sports for an administrative position. You stated nurturing. How can a recreational director nurture students? How does it happen? You add a 5th position to Lincoln High School, taking my tax dollars that is not needed, saying that they can support. But your other contrary statement states that, oh, we need someone with experience. So what is it? Support or experience? You have to change. Cindy Martin, you said you will see Lincoln succeed. You said that 6 years ago. We're on our 3rd principle. If I have to raise this community, I will. If I have to get more people on board, I will. If I have to tell my story to every camera, microphone in this county, I will. Because you have failed us yet again, and I'm over it. Everyone in this room is over it. I'm not asking for the impossible. I'm not asking for an explanation why you removed them. I'm asking for you to do the right thing and appoint the right people for this selection process. And a recreational director is not that dude. All right.
Any other speakers? Are there any other speakers?
Good evening. My name is Kimberly Coons-Banks. I am a Lincoln High alumni. I am a parent of Lincoln High School students, and I'm a proud community member of the 4th District. I am encouraging the board to please show their profound support for Ms. Maisha Wiggum, one of the vice principals at Lincoln High School, and in her future endeavors within San Diego Unified School District. At Lincoln, I'm vested in Lincoln. I have a son who graduated in 2018 who just finished his freshman year at UC Davis and did outstanding. I have a rising junior who went to USD today and took part of the Legal Institute at USD. I have 2 2 junior high school students who will be graduating in 2024 and 2025. So I'm totally fully vested in Lincoln High School. We have some of the best educators in the district at our school, 2 of them sitting in the back, Mr. Lardy and Ms. Reyes, and I just want us all to be a part of this process. I want our voices to be heard, and I want our students to be supported. I do not want to send my child to any other school in the district. I want my children to be Hornets like I was a Hornet. We bleed green, and I want them to be that part, have a part of that. I want them to continue on our legacy, but we need your guys' support, and we need you guys to include us in this process, please.
Yes, thank you.
My name is Robert Patman. I'm coming here very emotional. My son's about to be a senior at Lincoln High School. He's a 3rd generation Hornet. And it just felt like I was on the process on the panel for last year for the 2 vice principals. And the key thing was for us to find somebody that's going to be there long term. A year later, they're fired. My son is going into his senior year without even knowing who is the principal. He's built relationships with those people that was there. Not only he's coming back from Stanford, he's going to UCLA tomorrow. He's a 4.0 student. 10 D1 offers for football. He's being looked at by Ivy League schools. Now, I texted him when it first happened, hey, Quiz, did you see this? The first thing that he texts back, they don't want to see us succeed. And that's meaning y'all. We need something long term. Don't keep just giving us turnover. We want somebody that's going to be there. Soto seemed like he wanted to be there. That change is not going to happen like that. But if we keep turning over, where's it? And who's going to succeed for us? If we keep somebody new every other year, nobody's ever going to be successful. We need somebody who wants to be there and be a Hornet. And another fact is, we got staff that doesn't want to be a Hornet. Can we get rid of them? I want somebody for my kids that wants to be at Lincoln, that wants to teach our kids, that knows our community and knows our trouble and understands us.
Thank you.
So it hurts not to see that happening at my school. And my son, I have a younger son that's coming in to be a Hornet. And I don't want another turnover for him to have to deal with another turnover and 5 more principals. It's hurting.
Thank you. Next.
Stop criminalizing our black youth. You have a 45-pound boy who you allowed your administration to call the police on. You are grooming our children for the school-to-prison pipeline. 45 pounds. And you allowed 2 little boys, 7 and 8-year-olds, to be questioned by police without parent notification, before or after, without parents being present. You have a consistent record of hiding information, covering up things. You have a consistent record of criminalizing our youth, and you call yourself a restorative district. I'm not gonna stop.
Thank you.
Because you sat up here, you took your time and made us wait. You can cut off the mics all you want to, I have a loud voice. You took your time, but when it comes to the community, you want to rush our voice. And it stops today. Yes. Yeah, we fought for Mr. Soto, and you made sure he failed. You did not give him the tools. You did not give him the support. The students came and you had an agenda. You wanted Lincoln to fail because your own political positions. Yes. You keep setting our children up for
Do we
failure,
have other speakers?
and we will not take it anymore. And Cindy, you wanted to deny a parent a meeting with you because they wanted me in the room. It just got personal.
Other speakers. Would you call the rest of the period, whoever they are? Just went on ahead.
I was just gonna, just a minute, you said? Are you ready? Oh, I'm Jamie Wilson. I was gonna let Aramik go ahead and speak for me for a couple of reasons. I'm sick and I just can't stop coughing, but two, because I'm completely offended by the fact that I wanted a meeting. I wanted to have a meeting with you guys. That's my son. It's my 8-year-old that the police were called on for having play money at school. First of all, I stand with Lincoln, and I think you removed the wrong principal from the wrong school. You should have done that over at Valencia. But when for you to feel that your personal issues with someone that I'm bringing in as support for myself took precedent over who I was bringing in as support for me in a meeting was just completely offensive. You don't know my relationship to Aramik. For you to even bring up your feelings and whatever you guys have in the past was just really, really offensive, and it just kind of gave me an eye-opening just experience as to how the whole meeting was going to even go. So I've been, standing back besides the fact that I'm sick, but the Valencia Park principal needs to go. You guys know the whole story. You know a lot more than a lot of other people know, and for you to stand, if you keep her on any longer, you're complicit to every single thing.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers? Just call the rest of them.
Yes, the rest of the speakers on non-agenda items would be Ilka Weston, Herman Collins, Margaret Morgan, Brian Benz, Hailey Salas, Ahmad Mahmoud, and Tasha Williamson.
Hi, my name is Tasha Williamson, and I just want to convey that you guys talked about restorative practices a long time. You put a lot of money into it, and then you didn't do it. When it comes to Lincoln High, there are parents on both sides. The way in which you let go of the staff, was not in line with anything restorative, professional. There should not have been, if these staff members were not being fired, they should not have been escorted in the manner that they were, because you didn't terminate them. So for me, I think you guys did more harm than you did good. You didn't notify parents. You didn't even get buy-in from parents about who would lead the efforts. You haven't even had communication with the parents prior to, after. Everything has been reactionary. And so this is wrong for the district, it's wrong for the community, and it's not in line with restorative practice. As far as Valencia Park,
Thank you.
with the parent, I think that you guys need to right your wrongs. There has been tremendous damage at Valencia Park, and you need to make sure that you're righting your wrongs. And Whitehurst Payne, we may not have wholeheartedly elected you, but you are in that seat now, and you are a representative of us, and you need to represent us right, because we won't forget it. It is time that when you start passing out pink slips, Cindy Martin, I'm sorry, you just don't cut it. You have not cut it. And Kevin Beiser, you're not out of it at all either.
Thank you.
So for me, I think you guys need to stand up. Barrera, I remember when you came to Jacobs Center, you were talking about being courageous. If you're not going to be courageous, we're going to make sure that everybody who is running is opposed.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Herman Collins. I forwarded a letter to each of you. Give Lincoln a fighting chance. It pretty much was an open letter. I hope all of you had a chance to receive that. I also tonight am going to provide you some issues and steps to restoring trust. First and foremost, we appreciate Dr. Board President, Trustee Sharon Whitehurst Payne for taking a hands-on approach to a very important process. However, it's highly unusual for a trustee to be involved in the process the way she's been thus far. The revolving chair in the principal's office at Abraham Lincoln High School happened on Superintendent Martin's watch. Therefore, our first request is that the success or failure of a new administration be tied directly to the tenure of Ms. Martin. If he or she succeeds, she stays. If he or she fails, she goes. That's the most important thing. I know you're uncomfortable with this today, Dr. Payne. You're rushing everybody through here. You don't want to hear us. However, the community deserves to have an open hearing on Lincoln High School. we ask that you would agendize that time specific for your next board meeting before you start to adjourn for the summer. Thank you very much, and I'll give my comments in writing.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. My name is Christy. I'm the Deputy Advocacy Director at the ACLU of San Diego and Imperial Counties, and I'm here to talk tonight about the incident at Valencia Park. Too often, schools become a pipeline to the criminal legal system, especially for Black and Latinx students, who make up 71% of Valencia Park Elementary School. Ordinary, useful behaviors that were once handled by teachers or counselors are now referred to the police. Based on the facts that have been shared, it should have been self-evident that the bills in question were play money, and there should have been no reason to call the police. The incident is particularly disturbing because it also may have been an illegal custodial interrogation in violation of state law. And not only did the principal allow for this illegal interrogation, but also did not contact the parents or guardians of the boys prior to calling the police, and then went on to minimize the impact of the police questioning the boys. We support the calls from impacted community stakeholders calling for change at the district and school level, and call on the district to engage in corrective steps immediately, including issuing an apology, ending routine policing in schools, and mandating that youth 18 years of age or younger have access to a lawyer before being questioned, and also working with the community to develop a policy for when parents and guardians are notified. We hope that you will work with the community to address this issue.
Thank you. Superintendent.
Hello, my name is Ilka Weston. I am a local parent in San Diego County. I'm also an activist, and I work really hard to try to be a good ally to the different communities. And when I heard what happened at Valencia Park, I broke down in tears. These are two young boys, 7 and 8. It is horrific that a principal is teaching protocol of profiling, and these little boys need to experience that. They are already being put through so much trauma now in school with having to go through drills if there's a gun in the area. And I am sickened that a principal was allowed to call the police, and that the police see that this is okay, because it is not. And what happened at Lincoln, this is how I look at it. One, there is a school that has 98% minority, 78% economic challenges.
Thank you.
You shouldn't have fired or dismissed these people, Cindy. You need to give them the tools. That is your job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to me again tonight.
Thank you. Any more speakers? Were there any others?
Good evening, esteemed trustees. I just want to say that I am extremely my name is Ahmad Mahmoud. I'm sorry about that. I'm extremely disappointed in the way that this board has operated with the issue that happened at Valencia Parkway. Those are 7, 8-year-old boys. I ask you today, Board Member Beiser, Lee Evans, Whitehurst Payne, Cindy Martin, Richard Barrera, and Michael McQuarrie, I ask you, if those were your boys, what would have happened? Right. I bet you there would have been a shit show at Valencia Parkway. I bet you would have had people fired. I bet you would have had all the media out there. But it's because it's not your boys, you think it's okay. But this community is tired. Dr. Sharon, you represent me. And right now you're not representing me when you let these things go unchecked. You are the president of this board. I cannot believe you allowed that to happen, and I cannot believe this is the way you guys have acted in this meeting today while we sit here and try to tell you about our grievances. But let me remind you guys, it was the people who elected you all, and it is those same people who will unseat you. So I'll see y'all soon.
Thank you, sir. Any other speakers?
Yes, hi, I'm I'm Amy Zamudio. Cindy, thank you so much for congratulating the class of 2019. My son is a La Jolla High 2019 graduate, cum laude. I'm very proud of him. It was his privilege that got him that. My son and I stand in solidarity with the parents of Lincoln High and the mom at Valencia Park. the mom actually came and spoke to a bunch of us in La Jolla, and we're outraged. And we're seeing the disparity in treatment, and San Diego Unified School District absolutely does not treat all students equally. At La Jolla High, we have a massive amount of cocaine and marijuana on our campus, and I never see the police called in. I graduated from La Jolla High in 1985. That campus was loaded with cocaine. No police ever. Ever. We had a Hispanic boy expelled from La Jolla High. I asked for restorative justice. You did not question the white boys bullying the Hispanic boy from City Heights.
Thank you.
You are shameful. You need to resign, but only after you fire Lori Moore and she can join racist Principal Trippy from La Jolla Elementary.
Thank you.
Because we see you all. We see you.
Thank you. Next. Is that it?
With the dismissal of the admin at Lincoln High, I would like to say that I personally have to comfort a lot of the victims from Soto and Wiggum. Their loved ones will never walk through the door again. They will never say hi to them because of the pure negligence that Soto and Wiggum put them through that led to their demise. So I would have to say that me and the greater majority that you don't see here of the community are in full support that they were walked out of there and in the manner that they were walked out of there.
Thank you.
And it was great, and it was funny. They deserved everything they got.
Thank you.
They deserved to walk out of there and be publicly embarrassed in LA and Las Vegas. So that's what they got. That's what they deserved. And as you can see, there's only a few Lincoln admin, a few Lincoln staff here that's against it.
You.
And Soto's not here defending you, is he? Or Wiggum.
Thank
you. You can guarantee that. They don't care about your paycheck.
Officers, I'm not sure. It seems like we have competing groups here.
You guys look like fools right now.
Thank you. Can you pull up? Did she cut the mic? Did she cut the mic? The mic is off. Order, or we would dismiss the meeting. I'm asking you for order, or the meeting will be adjourned. Meeting is adjourned.